Thanks for staying with me. That's the third edition of TMI Tuesday in the year 2021. And we made good sense of this third edition. As we said, we're going to be looking at the COVID-19 pandemic as it affects the deferment of school resumption in Edo State. And joining me in this discussion at my immediate left, I have a social media influencer in politics and governance, Jack Obiyan. Thanks for coming, Jack.
Very good morning to you, sir. Good morning, everyone.
And next to him is an educationist, and it is Bishop Ohisi Manuel. Thanks for coming, Bishop Ohisi.
Thank you so very much, and good morning.
I start with you, Ohisi. The school resumption deferment in Edo State from January 18 to February 1, which is by 2 weeks. Don't you see this as an opportunity for schools in Edo State to make preparation in order for them to be able to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic as children resume?
Once again, thank you for having me. First and foremost, I would like to sincerely, on behalf of private schools in Edo State, appreciate Governor for his concern over the health and the safety of the citizens of Edo State. And it is true that school environment, if not properly managed, can be a fertile ground for the growth and the spread of the infection. Last year, the governor, after a series of consultation, rolled out programs and gave us the mandate to educate our members, sensitize them, and ensure that necessary facilities, modalities, and materials that will ensure schools comply with the COVID-19 safety protocols were carried out and implemented in our various schools. And to a large extent, most private schools in Edo State complied. We have continued to sensitize our members in that regard. As schools were anticipating resumption on the 18th, most proprietors also swung into action to check and ensure that these facilities such as running waters, infrared thermometer, hand sanitizers, face masks, and all the others that they were also available. So we believe strongly that schools are even a very vital partner with government.
Okay, so you seem not to understand the sense that the state government is making out by extending it by 2 weeks.
The 2 weeks, probably the governor being our leader may have some information that we are not probably privy to. But however, in this current decision, schools were not carried along.
Okay.
There was no consultation. And so it came more or less like a shock to private schools as they were making preparation to ensure. Because the truth is that most private schools have even carried out fresh fumigation of their schools, ensure that their waters are running and all the other facilities. So private schools are prepared for resumption. That is the truth about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you make of this, Jacobian?
Well, the truth of the matter is that I would I understand where he's coming from. I mean, the arguments he has put across. I understand it very well. But there's one thing about the coronavirus. It doesn't even carry anybody along. Do you understand where he said schools were not carried along? So, I mean, it keeps taking people by surprise. You now have mutations of the virus. You now have different variants from a couple of countries. And the problem with this second wave is that it's even deadlier than the first one. The first one, I mean, for 14 days, one can be sick and then get well. This second variant can kill as early as 24 hours. And the deputy governor was very clear yesterday, telling when we were on our sensitization tour around the city center yesterday. He made it very clear to everyone, look, we are doing this to keep you all alive. Education will always be there. Everybody will always have the school to go to. It's unfortunate, really, really unfortunate, as someone who's a pro-education, who's a who's very passionate about education, I would want to even see the children back to school since yesterday or even the day before.
Okay.
But the thing is that we're talking about life, we're talking about healthcare,
Okay.
we're talking about survival.
Okay, but good to know that the state government is doing something in that regard because we have COVID-19 variants, and so that becomes the reason why it has to be studied. But the 2 weeks interval that the state government is giving.
Less than 2 weeks, I'll still always
okay, less than 2 weeks.
A week and
is
a
it,
few
is
days,
it, is it to carry out a study on the variant? Or to bring out something that will be unique for schools?
No, the thing
so
is,
what will be different this time?
The difference is simple. I mean, it just gives people more time. Even if there was no official consultation, I can tell you that there must have been some discussions here and there with some of the stakeholders and all of that, and say, okay, the best way, let's not take these people by surprise as they're coming on the 18th and say, okay, you must be 100% compliant. They know that many of them just coming in from the holidays, they are trying to settle down, trying to organize and all of that. They may not be in full compliance. And it just takes the mistake of one or the non-preparedness of one to put everybody in trouble.
Okay.
You know, that's how the virus behaves.
Okay.
One person can just get in somewhere, and because the school was not 100% prepared for it, and then it infects hundreds.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Emmanuel, we have these issues where, like you did say, that most of the private schools were ready, you know, and providing measures to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. But we still see crowded children, even in some private schools. We still have issues where measures are not properly taken care of in order to fight the COVID-19 pandemic, even at schools. I expect changes to be made in this direction.
Okay, I want to point out that for the government-approved schools that are duly licensed by the state government, most of them, if not all of them, know the implication of violating the directive of the state government.
So what do you do to your classes?
So,
because we understand that there should be a way where you have a little number of pupils or students in a classroom.
Okay.
But we still see
2 points
numbers of 20, 30 in a classroom. How do you explain that? 2
points I want to bring up. Number one, private schools are not actually as crowded as probably you are still seeing the old tapes of 5-10 years back. Private schools are not as crowded as public schools or as private schools used to be. That's number one. And then number two, after the lockdown, schools resumed around October. Majority of the pupils and the students in private schools did not resume because the parents felt that the term was going to be very short and there was no need paying school fees. So there was hardly any school that recorded up to 70% attendance last term. That's the truth about it. We also, as an association, we also had a team that went around to check, because before that resumption, we had series of meetings with some organs of the government, I think at the instance of the HOS, and then we were properly educated on these things, and we took it back to our members, and we also let them know, to avoid a situation whereby when you have problem with government, you have to run back to us. We will set up a team to go around.
Okay. What's the actual number of pupils that should be in a classroom?
Okay.
Looking at this present predicament of the COVID-19 scourge.
Depending on the size of the classroom, we expect that it should be between 10 and 20 for those that have very large classes.
Okay.
Those that have smaller classes, they can have 10 children well spaced apart.
You just said this, but let's look at what is really operational, like in the previous term.
Okay.
Can you fairly say that that was operational?
Between that range,
schools? Yeah.
Most of the private schools, yes, it was. Most private schools. And you see, probably one of these days when you go around schools with your team, with your crew, you will discover when schools are fully in session that in so many private schools, a good number of their classrooms are even totally empty, not being used. So unlike before, where you had most private schools filled to capacity, due to various challenges, economic challenges, most parents are not able, and also thanks to the government improvement in the public school system.
I was actually going to say
yes.
I was actually going to say that.
No, we should know the facts I'm presenting. Yeah. Some of the parents who were struggling to keep their children in private schools due to some of the challenges in public schools. Some of them have also pulled out their children. So the population of most private schools have dropped drastically. That's the
why having an increase in the population of public schools.
And that's why even the concern for COVID-19, sincerely, is stronger for the public schools. And we understand that in the meetings we had before the last resumption, that was the point. They kept on hammering on the need for the government to do something.
Jacobian, you just made mention of the fact, which is really no news. We all are well fit the very fact that there's a second wave and it's deadlier. You know, looking at the intricacies involved and the need for us to be proactive as a government, what measures is the state government taking in respect of monitoring schools, public schools, private schools, within the bracket of Edo State?
No, the fact is not just even schools, like everybody. Because if you focus on schools, then the rest become vulnerable.
Okay, but we are having schools today. So yes,
obviously.
Yes, okay.
So
let's look at let's look at the searchlight the state government is having, because I understand, like you said, you people had a series of meetings yesterday.
Yes, I think, went on a sensitization.
Okay, I think it should also be to capture schools in Edo State, seeing the compliance level to COVID-19 protocols adherence.
No, that is absolutely there. All of them are in place. The guidelines are there. The number of children that are supposed to be in each classroom, and of course, no face mask, no entry regulation. That one is there. They're obviously complying with it at the entrance of each schools, because we know everything we need to do to mitigate. Because you can't really totally stop the spread of the virus. That's just the truth. Because it's an invisible enemy, let's call it like that. So to mitigate the impact and the spread is at the entrance of each institute, there's hand wash station there with hand sanitizer and all of that. And then of course, without face mask, you're not entering, both for the teachers and for the students. And then obviously when you get to the classrooms, there's this at least minimum of 1.5 meters.
Okay, we know all of that. We know all of that. Now, the state government is here to set a cabinet, and do you see that as a setback for this drive?
I don't think it is a setback, because I mean, it is important. Having a cabinet is important. They have to be holding ESCO meetings, of course, to be continuously, you know, governing the state with all these regulations of COVID and all of that. But again, for example, yesterday on our sensitization tour, the PAMSEC of the Ministry of Health was with us. So these are also relevant and very important civil servants that are ensuring that there is compliance.
Okay. So will you like have a compliance team or a task force that will monitor?
There is already. Like yesterday, for example, the deputy governor was inspecting the police constables that are going to effect the arrest of those who violate the COVID-19 rules and regulations, and they are going to be taken to mobile court for prosecution. It's just what it is. It's very serious this time around, unlike the first time when there wasn't really anything.
Will the task force be monitoring schools also?
Yes, obviously.
Including public schools?
Including public schools.
Because we have huge populations there.
Yes.
No. We have this challenge of low-cost schools. We understand that some schools went underground during the lockdown or during, as in the pandemic that we're in. Now, what do you make of this? Do you think low-cost schools can withstand the present predicament of the scourge?
It's not just the issue, even those we call, because in Edo State we have schools in 3 categories, A, B, C, done by the state government. That's how we pay our renewals. So even the middle cost schools, if I will borrow your term, are not finding it funny. The teachers, the school owners, to have survived the 6 months COVID-19 lockdown and then the NSAS protest, it was hell for them. And that was why we're talking about consultation this time around.
But sorry to cut in there. Just wanted to mention, which I told him earlier, there was, I know that there's some kind of assistance from the federal for teachers, financial assistance, the so-called, is it survival fund they call it? Oh, is it survivor fund?
Survivor fund.
Yes.
The percentage of schools that have accessed that fund nationally is very minimal. Okay. And then even at that, to get approval for the specific number of schools, teachers, that will be considered, that's something else. And it's going to be really minimal of the number of staffs you have. And we know that without fees, private schools cannot actually meet their financial obligations to their staffs, and the welfare of their staffs will be in jeopardy. And even to raise facilities to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. People have to go out of their way last time because they've been at home for months and now they needed to comply. And we just told them it's for the safety of the children and your own safety. Okay, what's your grasp in that direction in terms of having a bailout for schools by the government? We are expecting that Edo State government, if you go to the Board of Internal Revenues, our records are there. Okay. Schools are paying taxes, they are paying renewals. So to assess these schools and give them aid, whether the middle cost or the low cost, you have the data. That's the state government. And then these schools pay pay as you earn, payee, for their staff. So you even have the record of their staff. Are you not giving a tax break? For now, we are expecting that there will be a tax break for this year, because every year your income tax is for the preceding year. Okay. So we are expecting that this year there will be a tax relief for 2020 because of the lockdown. So we have written to that effect, and we are expecting a positive response. But we are also considering the fact that schools pay renewals. And if schools pay renewals, at least the government should consider granting waivers in that direction. If you pay renewal for 1 year, you are given a license for 1 year, and you are unable to run for even half of the year. One would expect that in the following year, especially for a year that is kickstarting with a semi-lockdown for schools, as we're having it, that should be part of the consideration, to give the government a human face, so that private schools don't see themselves as people that the government totally do not have concern for. We are complementing government. We are not competing with government. We are just there to ensure that the system runs well. And so we expect that. And also, let me quickly chip this in. We have to visit while the other time to tell them you cannot close enrollment by 15th of January because schools are going to resume 18th. And they gave extension and say, okay, it will expire on the 1st of February. Only for us to hear announcement now that school will resume 1st of February. So one would have expected, if consultation was done, probably would have asked, can the senior class, the certificate class, be allowed to come to school? Because that would be a very minimal number of students. Because one, you have to, apart from doing their enrollment, capturing their biodata, you need to also prepare them adequately. By the time you resume now, you have maybe 2 months this term. By the next term, the tradition, by the next term, April, you are writing WAEC. Okay. And we know the effect it had on our students, those few ones that resumed last term. The zeal to learn had dwindled, had gone down. Okay, so you expect the state government to make adequate arrangements concerning how to address all of these challenges for the schools in Edo State? Okay. Yes. Big thanks for making our time to be part of this, Thank you so very Bishop Ohis Obiang. And big thanks for making our time. We'll take a short break on TMI Tuesday, and after this break, we're going to be having another educationist to discuss with Ohis Obiang, Jack Obiang rather, for this extension on the COVID-19 pandemic as it relates to school resumption deferment in Edo State. Stay with me.